speak into retraining and working with your organization on ongoing trainings and how to continue that culture, not just to make just a one-time thing, how to make it an ongoing process?
Yeah, that's a good question, Joel. It's again, we screen them, we train them, we bring them in, and then do we turn our back on them and never look at them again? Of course not. Training is always ongoing. We made a few mistakes in the beginning when we got this going, and that was monthly training, and that's just too much. That's just too much for parents that have busy lives. So we immediately knocked it down to quarterly training. And after you had been on the team, I think it was for a year, and you've gone through 4 quarterly trainings, then you're on a bi-yearly training issue. Or if important information came forward, we would always share that. And then we would have a once a year, everybody comes together on a Saturday morning, all the volunteers, all hundreds of them, however many there are, and we meet and we do a very targeted type training that once a year. What are the 3 or 4 biggest things that have changed in the last year that we want to give to our people? That meeting was mandatory. You had to come to that, but we made it worth your while. We made sure you were fed well and there were lots of coffee. We didn't drag it on all morning. We made it 3 hours long so that everybody could get there and they could do that. And then we had a makeup class, of course, because people's lives are busy. And that was on a weeknight. And so ongoing training, absolutely important. You don't always have to come up with the training yourself. Sometimes a portion of that training might be done by the chief of police in Peoria, Arizona, where our church was. And the chief was always happy to come in and address on a Saturday morning all of those volunteers. And maybe he would talk about half an hour and he would talk about laws. And then we would have an attorney come in. And we would do this every time. And the attorney would talk about mandatory reporting. Does everybody know what mandatory reporting is? Depending on your state, we have 50 different types of mandatory reporting in the United States, unfortunately. We don't have a uniform blanket. They're very similar from state to state, but I can speak to Arizona, for example. If you are a volunteer working with kids, or certainly in a paid position, or clergy, or anything of that matter, and you notice bruises, or a child tells you that they're being touched inappropriately, because we come back to this and the reporting process of that. What's the first thing we would do when a child reported to us? The first thing we would do is call 911 and then Child Protective Services. The state of Arizona gives you your choice, Child Protective Services or 911. You have to contact one of them. We would contact both. And then, of course, document. Write it down. You're not going to remember 6 months down the road. So couple things to remember with mandatory reporting. It's probably not going to go well, especially with the parents or the accused. And they're going to come storming down to the church. They're going to get on the phone and they're going to give you a load of it. And they're going to ask, why didn't you check into this yourself? That's what mandatory reporting is all about. We don't have a choice in the ministry. That's why they call it mandatory reporting. Where churches got in trouble in the past is an accusation would come forward, and then the church, the elders, the board, whoever, would do the investigation and make a determination. Not anymore, not for many years now. So we would ask our volunteers if they're working in children's ministry and a child told them, my dad touched me last night inappropriately, that would immediately go get her supervisor, and that supervisor would get the staff, and then we would take it from there and do our part in mandatory reporting. Because without mandatory reporting, we're not going to get these kids kept safe, and we're not going to get them out of those bad situations. And it's not up to us. It's up to the government to do that. So understand your state and what the mandatory reporting laws are. And there's a couple of resources out there, one by Richard Hammer, who is a very well-known church law and tax guy. I think he has compiled all 50 states, continental states anyway, on what the mandatory reporting law is. And remember that these laws are fluid and that they do change, and you want to check. If your church has an attorney who gives his time or is kept on retainer, have your attorney come in and do that training, that ongoing training with your staff. It's going to have more of an impact that way than if I stand up there and say, here's what mandatory reporting is, make sure you do it. They're tired of hearing from me. So they want to hear from somebody else, and you get a guy up there, you get a shark up there in his suit and tie, or, an insurance agent, in his suit and tie, if they wear those anymore. and and lay that out. So your training can involve, it just doesn't have to be you. You want to get other speakers up there, and it's not rah-rah time either. Let's get to the facts, and then let's get to the food.
I think retraining is so important. I think when I look at some of the worst situations, like Jerry Sandusky and some of those situations, and those people that saw something and didn't report it, I don't know if retraining and those sorts of things would have changed the outcomes or if it would have empowered people, but it certainly wouldn't have hurt the situation if you get into a situation and you encourage these people, no matter who it is in this organization, no matter what position and authority they have, if you see something that could be abuse against somebody else, you report it, you say something. And this is how our organization will respond.
It's a very dynamic world we live in. 10 years ago, when we did this kind of training, nobody ever thought social media would be where it's at today. And that 7-year-olds would be sitting on a $600 smartphone texting their friends. Whoever would have thought of that? So you have to tailor, update, make your training current. Like on the phone thing, you go into these meetings with these parents and you talk about social media. Have resources ready for them, because they're probably pulling their hair out too. How do they control this? How do they keep their kids safe from it? Have those resources ready. You can go on to the App Store. There's apps out there galore for parents on how to keep kids safe, and just little things that you can put on your kids' phones. Who ever thought we would have to do that? But here we are today. So it's a good point when you say, Joe, we have to stay current with our training and make it worthwhile for our volunteers.